I just wanted to ask about the story that I read, The Survivor. It says that you woke up in a coma in 1989.
I was 19 years old, staying in a tribal area. Every rainy season, I used to fall sick with malaria, and I suffered malaria 14 times in my life. And one of that 14 times was a cerebral malaria, that took me into coma. And it completely changed my way of thinking.
The current situation happening in Africa, how should we understand preparedness in such cases?
So the truth is, the current strain of Ebola, there is no vaccine available. Several meetings when the policies get decided and everything, I went and asked, have you seen somebody dying right in front of you, not having access to treatment or healthcare? You possibly don't understand it. You have never seen what real life is. My view is the quest should not die. The curiosity should not die. Then you are finished.
क्यों डरे जिंदगी में क्या होगा कुछ नहीं होगा तो तजुर्बा होगा. One geopolitical risk that concerns you.
If there is a war and supply chain disruption happens, every country is at risk. There is something in WHO agenda is called disease X. That means we really don't know what that disease would be. But there is definite imminent danger of that disease X can spread. It could be waiting for the right time. You have no idea.
What is that one piece of advice that you used to give to the older generations, which you will not give to the millennials, Gen Zs or the Gen Alphas?
You asked for one advice. I'll possibly give two advice.
Okay,
Bonus
let's
one.
go. Welcome to ImaTalks, where science meets story. I'm your host, Khushi Gandhi. Vaccines are often spoken about as breakthroughs, a product, a formula, or something that just reaches people. But the real story is a lot more complex. There are questions of biology, questions of scale, questions of access. And between all of that, there are people making decisions on how this science reaches the real world. Our guest today, Dr. Priyabrata Pattnaik, brings the rare lens to this discussion. His career began in microbiology and infectious disease research, moved through malaria and biodefense vaccine programs, expanded into global bioprocessing and biologics operation, and later into senior technical leadership at Indian Immunological. Today, as CEO of AmiPolymer, he brings that full journey into the world of critical components and high purity manufacturing. This conversation is about what it really takes to turn science into impact. Welcome to ImaTalks, Dr. Pattnaik.
Thank you.
So, before we begin, I just wanted to let you know that you've been on our guest list of ImaTalks long before we started at AmiPolymer. So it's a pretty coincidence that, we're sitting across now for this conversation. So before we get into entire vaccines and biologics and everything, I just wanted to ask about the story that I read of The Survivor, which was published. And it says that you woke up in a coma in 1989. Do you want to take us back to that story?
Yeah, I was 19 years old, staying in a tribal area, and my father was posted there. So 14 years I have spent deep inside forest among tribals. And because they don't have the basic medical infrastructures, and every rainy season I used to fall sick with malaria, and I suffered malaria 14 times in my life. And one of that 14 times was a cerebral malaria, that took me into coma and went through a kind of what you can call as a near-death experience. Somehow I survived, came back, but there are other children and people in that room that didn't make it. They absolutely didn't make it. And that was a traumatic episode, I would say, and it completely changed my way of thinking. That actually made me question a lot of things. I can vividly remember that. And that's a difficult time, and not easy being lying in a coma, still feel everything, and seeing one by one dying in a room. And it's not easy. Absolutely not easy.
Those are your young children.
Yes. And that's basically raises a fundamental question about that. You feel that every child deserves a life. And when you are lying coma and you are seeing that one by one they are dying, and you are just helpless, cannot do anything. And they are dying because they don't have access to medicine, or there is lack of proper treatment, or they were not diagnosed properly. A life could have been saved. And That was the most disturbing aspect. I mean, that gave me a clear understanding that access to healthcare is paramount. And unless it reaches to the last person, the last mile, it would not make the difference that we talk about in sitting in an air conditioned room now.
So, when you look at an infectious disease, how do you decide whether a vaccine can be made for this one or not, or how to go about it?
So I think in a very in a simplistic way to tell, the historical concept was, if I can isolate the disease causing agent, inactivate it, and then inject back, the body will respond to like yet another antigen entering our body. Antigen means anything foreign entering our body, and our immune system will respond to that, thinking that it is a pathogen. And that antibody that stays in our blood circulation, next time when the real pathogen comes, will neutralize it. So that's the whole fundamental concept of developing a vaccine. That was the older concept. All historical classical vaccines are developed that way. You think of tuberculosis, you think of polio, you think of influenza. But as the pathogens and everything becoming more and more complex, the newer generation of vaccines are what we call component vaccines. In a way, it is not the whole bacteria or the whole virus or the whole parasite. It is a part of it which is used, which science allows us to define that, okay, this is something which is more unique in nature. If I can target that, possibly that can produce an immune response which is protective. I'm so curious many times. Such a tiny microorganism doesn't have its brain of its own, but they're so smart that just fools us and fools our immune system every time. And we are in a constant battle to deal with it, and it's an uphill battle.
Is there an answer to that?
Well, it's the simple mechanism of survival. Like, if I'm in a stressful environment, I will adapt to survive. If I don't adapt, I will die. It's as simple as that.
I mean, interesting to research on all of these things where every new strain brings a different symptom than you would ever imagine in a disease. Like COVID-19 in itself taught us a lot of things.
Yep.
What makes malaria vaccine a challenge right now?
I think the challenge is multifold. One, at the science level, because the parasite changes frequently, and it hides inside either liver or in red blood cells, which had a short lifespan, or it stays in the mosquito gut, and it has 3 phases of its multiplication. So if you need a holistic control, you need to target all the stages, or you have to have a mechanism of eliminating the pathogen inside the body, which is always a challenge. That is one. Number two, you have to make it very affordable. So even though science is available, technology is there, but if it is not available, most of the people in urban setup don't get malaria. And the bigger other challenge is the remoteness of the area where it need to be available. So it's the access.
Right.
Most of the vaccines need cold chain, and a lot of these rural infrastructure do not have cold chain infrastructure. Yeah. So it's multifaceted. Or the other bigger challenge is the dosing regime. Like every child born today in India must be taking more than 8 or even much more than number of vaccines in a given time. If every disease we need to tackle, each one of them need to be vaccinated, it's extremely difficult because the child has to come multiple times to get multiple doses. So it is moving into a directions of can we have multivalent vaccines? So the bigger challenge is, can I use the current vaccination regime and include a new vaccine within that regime? If it is not well thought through during clinical development, makes it very, very difficult, because sooner or later there will be resistance. And we are seeing a child has to come to a hospital multiple times or a dispensary to get them vaccinated. And that covers a certain set of diseases which are essential. But if we need to target each one of them, of course, not everything is for pediatric vaccine. There are some which are travelers vaccine. The modern vaccines are for adults. But the number of vaccine increases, the dosing patterns becomes also limiting.
Okay, so for most people, a vaccine sounds like one thing, but scientifically, the platform changes everything. How it is designed, how fast it can be adapted, and how it is actually manufactured. If you had to explain evolution of vaccine platforms to a layperson, in a simple form, what are the biggest turning points, or which is that one idea that changed how we look at vaccine platforms right now?
I think if I have to make it a very simplified way, the first generation of vaccines were mostly inactivated. That
Right.
means you isolated the microorganism, inactivated it, and that's a vaccine.
Right.
Then it became what you call live attenuated. That means the pathogen or a microorganism is alive, but it's not infectious, but it can multiply in your body. Something like polio. But the newer generation of vaccines, what we call them as subunit vaccines. Subunit means it could be a component of the microorganism. It could be the cell wall. It could be polysaccharide that they produce. It could be its DNA or an RNA or a protein. And each of them has their own way of manufacturing. And earlier, the vaccine manufacturing process were very diverse, and it was taking much longer to develop, to manufacture. That was one of the possible reasons why you won't see that many historical CDMOs, contract developers or manufacturers, for vaccine segment. But nowadays, the new technology and evolutions of the vaccine focusing on subunit vaccine, that means you are basically producing a components of it. And that component can be produced in a very standardized manner. As long as the component is introduced to the platform and you have a process for the platform, you can quickly produce the vaccine. And every time you have to develop a new vaccine. The only thing you need to do is identify the protein sequence, which is the antigen, find its gene sequence, and introduce that gene sequence into the viral vector. So that makes it very, very easy and portable to scale process. And also quickly manufacture and without intervening too much about the manufacturing process.
Okay, so we see a lot of conversation about mRNA vaccines that are currently in industry. Did that really shift something or just accelerate something that was already happening in science?
People think that it has happened just now, but the science was done long ago. The concepts was very well known. There is something called central dogma of life. That means you have a DNA. The DNA of your body transcribes to an RNA or an mRNA, which is a messenger RNA. That messenger RNA codes a protein, and that protein then gets used in different functions. So mRNA vaccine is nothing but takes that mRNA or messenger RNA, which codes for a certain sequence that produces a protein, now delivers that messenger RNA in a kind of an encapsulated form, like a nanoparticle, what technically called. And it actually carries nothing but the mRNA. So when it gets into your body, you don't start with the DNA, you just start with an mRNA, and it quickly translates to a protein, and protein is the antigen. And it is something which can be quickly scaled, can be quickly produced. mRNA is something that can be chemically synthesized. Your footprint of the infrastructure becomes much, much smaller. So mRNA is certainly a revolutionary step when it comes to developing vaccines quickly whenever there is an emergency situation arise. But the challenge of mRNA vaccine not becoming very accessible to everybody at this point of time is either the patent that restricts its global use, or sometimes is the technology and the cost to produce.
Interesting. And so this looks very beautiful when we do it in lab. So a vaccine may look really perfect and works impeccably in a lab, but when it comes to manufacturing, it might have its own challenges. So what are the shifts that, according to you, happen from lab scale to manufacturing scale in development?
If I have to explain that in a very layman's term, if you have a kitchen, there are 4 people in your home, you know how to cook for 4 people. Right?
Yeah,
you have a certain set of utensils and how you make it. But suddenly, if I ask you, now you go to a langar or go to a marriage reception and cook for 1,000 people. Same food, same recipe, but it's not going to be easy. Because the way you mix things in a small pot and pan versus a big, huge pot and pan, there is a big difference. So in a simplified way, that's actually called scale up. Anything that you do in a lab, and when it goes to manufacturing, the scale changes. It's like cooking for 4 people versus cooking for like 1,000 people. Even though the recipe is the same, raw materials is the same, the pot and pans are different. The way it is mixed are different. The way it is cooked is different. The way it is stored is different. So most of the people, when in R&D, when they develop it, and they never think that this need to be scaled to that level. So sometimes they establish the proof of concept at the very early R&D stage and say, we have a vaccine. But the question is the vaccine can be made at that scale? Because it won't be possible to reach to the mass unless it is mass produced. And that is where the challenge of moving from a small scale to large scale comes.
So when we talk about scale up, the process development and the process manufacturing always comes into the question. So while upstream is where you grow and express the biology, and downstream, which is less visible to public but also drives your cost, your quality and everything. I want to understand, what are the scientists really trying to control in all these processes that happens?
Mhm.
And if you can take us a little bit step by step to have a layperson like me understand
Mhm.
what exactly happens with it.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to tell something in a very layman's language, I mean, today morning you were telling that somebody from Amazon is coming and delivering a product at your doorstep.
Right.
Just imagine that process. You went online, you placed an order, and product is getting delivered. But there is a lot of things which is happening in the background you have no idea of, or most of us don't care or don't know. If I have ordered a food item, it starts with the farmer, right? The farmer must have grown it in certain condition, would have moved into a processing industry. Somewhere it is packaged, processed, made ready. Then it would have moved to a warehouse. And each step, they would have ensured that the product has maintained its quality, its standards, and its certifications. And then it went to a warehouse. Then when you placed an order, they go and figured it out which one you want, and then they exactly come. And then there is a shipping agency involved in between. There is a delivery partner involved in between. The vaccine exactly runs the same way. So it has similarly, your starts with an R&D, you developed a molecule, or you starts with an upstream process where the product is produced in a bioreactor, and as it is produced, then it goes through multiple steps of purification that the product has to be purified. And in that purification, you have in-process checks or controls, what you call IPQC, in-process control quality checks. Your final quality release, and the product is made, then it get into a stage called drug substance, which is nothing but your purified bulk. Then the bulk get mixed with certain other components to make it formulated, which finally gets into a vial. And that vial is most of the time is maintains under a cold chain. That means it will go into a cold chain, a warehouse.
Right.
There is a shipping company involved which will move the material from that place to a different place. And then it will go to a possibly a global tender will happen, a country will buy, or a larger distributing agency will buy it, and then they will move to a different warehouse. From there, it will allocated that which privilege or which state or which province will receive it. And then some part will move there, and from there, possibly, if you think in India, we have these Anganwadi workers who are going door to door to give polio vaccine. Just imagine, and there are a lot of steps involved behind to get that 2 drops of polio reaching to a doorstep to every child. So that's called the last mile delivery. But there are a lot that happens before that. And most of us possibly either don't know or don't pay attention to, but there are a lot of work that goes on behind. As I said, it's very easy to order and then gets delivered in my doorstep, but there is a lot of steps behind. So same thing is vaccine.
No, that's actually right. It's not that we do not know what goes in the background, is that a lot of times we do not pay attention to what goes in the background of what we receive. And something as critical as vaccine, people having idea about these things and the what goes in the background, it brings out a lot more trust and safety into the entire process. So my follow-up question would be about, why does purification become one of the most toughest and the most expensive part of biologics and vaccines? Because right now that is the one of the cost is one of the biggest drivers of what we receive right now.
Correct.
So how is purification becoming more and more expensive?
So I mean, if you think of viral vaccines, most of the viral vaccines either inactivated or live attenuated. Live means they are live,
right?
But they are not causing the disease. So to purify the virus, when it goes through multiple steps of either chemical treatment or a purification processes. The bigger challenge is it should not lose its characteristics.
Gotcha.
That
Okay.
means if it is produced in a bioreactor in a certain way, and by the time the purification completes, if it alters its character or a behavior or nature, then that's not the vaccine. I have kind of compromised the
Yeah.
characteristic of the product. So, and that is where the biggest challenge is: how do I control and select unit operations? That unit operations purifies it without altering its basic characteristics and behavior. That's one. The other thing is also the yield and recovery aspect. Many times, because virus being very sensitive, they lose a kind of yield as multiple steps gets involved. So you may start with like 100. By the time you reach the last step, you are end up with only 10. It can happen that way. So what happens is people think that it is accessible and it's easy, but your productivity is low, so the cost becomes very intense.
Okay. And uh, I think it's also dependent on how the quality of the vaccines that we receive at this point. So, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Next, moving on to quality and validation is what you also covered before. So, emphasizing more on GMP thinking. In vaccines and biologics, we usually depend on final product testing, right? The product is too complex to be just be dependent upon the final product testing. And you also mentioned about concepts like critical quality attributes and critical process parameters, validation. So, and right now, GMP, these are not just paperwork. This is not just a lingo, but this is what we really
Yeah, no,
have
this has
to.
been practically practiced. I mean, this is the
Exactly.
expectation. There is a basic expectation of
So,
regulatory agencies.
So, can you explain why the quality has to be designed into the process rather than just being dependent on the final product testing?
So, I mean, historically, the earlier age-old concept that if your final product is okay, your product should be fine.
Hmm.
So it is like you are retrospectively, I mean, after the product is made, you're just ensuring the product actually meets the basic quality specifications. But your final product quality is impacted by every step. It's impacted by your raw material, it's impacted by the equipment, it's impacted by the chemicals, it's impacted by the people who are handling it. It's impacted at every step. So, how can you achieve a final product purity when you are not paying attention to every step?
Right.
So, the quality by design concept is basically saying as you are designing the process or manufacturing, it is no more just enough that the final product meets the quality. You need to ensure that each step, the quality product specifications are defined. That means you have to match the raw material specification. You have to ensure the people that are handling the product are well trained, they are behaving in a certain way, there's certain kind of purity of chemicals that you are following. So each one step actually combiningly, in a combination of everything, is defined your final product purity.
Okay, so when people say vaccines are expensive, the reasons behind that are not always obvious. According to you, what are the real cost drivers behind the cost of the vaccine or a biologic?
I think if I'm thinking of an Indian context, it's all about the raw material.
Okay.
Because most of our raw materials are imported because we do not have in-country capacity to produce it. So most of the raw materials that is used for producing a vaccine, they're expensive. So when I say raw material, it's not just the cell culture media, it's chromatography, it's the filter, all those things. It could be as simple as a syringe on which sometimes some vaccines get preloaded, or it's a vial. All those components that gets into, they are expensive. They are not cheap. And if it is imported, then it's far more expensive. And the other big cost involved is the cold chain.
Right.
The amount of electricity and all those things that is required to maintain it. I think if I have to fundamentally drive these two, and sometimes if your facility is not fully utilized, you will have an overhead cost is much, 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 much higher. So I think nutshell is the raw material, is the cold chain, and if the facility is not fully utilized, the overhead cost. These three things primarily drives the cost.
Interesting. So if the government wants, and if they decide to, let's say, bring the cost of the vaccine down drastically, which is that one step or part of the process any dry cost driver they would first target, or in your opinion should be the first target to reduce the cost?
I mean, for manufacturers, the biggest pain point is we have to import. Any vaccine manufacturer had to import a lot of stuff. So if there is some way government can incentivize or drive certain programs
Right.
that the raw materials or the components can be produced in-house, in country, for country, that would significantly bring down the cost. And that will also give us a lot of saving in terms of our foreign exchange.
Yeah.
Because then we are self-reliant. We are world's largest supplier of vaccines when it comes to manufactured in country and supplying to the world. But we are still heavily reliant on imports of many things. And that is where the local players, those who are producing raw materials or components that gets into the manufacturing process, is very, very relevant to the industry. Because industry can remain sustainable, can produce affordable, accessible product only when you are self-sufficient, self-reliant. And that's what the campaign of Atmanirbhar Bharat, that perfectly self-reliant India, is perfectly resonates with this. That means do everything in country. And the more we produce everything in-house, it produces employment. That's number one. And second thing, it also reduces our burden or our reliance on external or other countries to get the material in. And that's exactly what happened during COVID, right? When COVID happens, border sealed, raw materials didn't come. A lot of the international manufacturers and country were looking for their own country. We didn't get the vaccines. So in a way, we have to step up and try to have our own country vaccines produced. And that's how Covaxin, Covishield, and there are many other manufacturers who produce the vaccine in a shortest possible time. And government played a significant role, incentivizing, reducing roadblocks. And that is where a lot of the ingrown manufacturers for components or raw materials came to existence. Right? When emergency happens, doors is going to shut, boundaries is going to be built, supply chain disruption is destined to happen. So in those circumstances, you need to ensure that your country remains protected, your people are protected. So better to build in-country capacity. And that's where I see the shift, which is happening slowly.
Yeah, like incentivizing the indigenous production. And
exactly. You said it right. Absolutely.
It's like a domino effect. If you kind of, like you mentioned, that you produce in-house goods and raw materials, that is going to eventually affect the cost of the vaccine that we currently buy at. What is the current, I wouldn't say raw material, but any cost driver, which if tomorrow, if we are producing in-house, that would make a significant impact, and like, so just to trigger an idea of what can be produced and what should we look at, but manufacturing in-house in India, indigenously.
I mean, to be audacious and more demanding, I would expect that everything to be produced inside the country. We should not even import anything from outside. That's the end state. And as a country, India is absolutely in that path of innovations and evolution, where we are almost there, that the product is of high quality and affordable. No, I think what I really is a new insight for me is that when we talk about innovation, we talk about, oh, we are not ready to innovate yet, we do not have minds. But at the same time, we are not encouraging innovation as such either, right? There are no buyers, like you mentioned. So I feel it's a twofold process where people who have that opportunity to invest in innovation must consider themselves thinking in that area, so that they promote innovation. And people who have that kind of minds should come together and focus on creating something new. Absolutely. I mean, that reminds me of a very nice story. Me and my father, when I was a kid, we went to a market and there was somebody who came with a product and said, "Sir, इसमें ना ये feature है, पर 10 रुपए ज़्यादा लगेगा." And my father said, "अरे वो वाला तो 10 रुपए में कम दे रहा है, जो आप बता रहे हो उसमें मुझे चाहिए ही नहीं वो." So, I mean, when I retrospectively think about it, that gives me an idea that somebody innovated something, found something new, And to a great extent, a lot of us are thinking for affordability and not willing to pay for that innovation. So what will happen? The person who has innovated and wants to sell it little higher price doesn't feel motivated enough to drive the innovation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what happens is sooner or later that gets killed. Then we will come and blame me, we are not innovating.
So that also brings me more into the supply chain aspect of vaccines, is that when the pandemic happened, the vaccine preparedness was not only about inventing science, but it went from raw materials, filters, bags, tubings. They've trained people, quality testing, and everything. And also suppliers being ready at the same time.
Mhm.
So, from your experience, what did the pandemic reveal about supply chain current, at that time?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that unraveled during the pandemic situation, that are we truly ready? That's the bigger question that got raised. There is one good thing happened with COVID is people now accept vaccine. Me or any scientist or any healthcare workers need not to go and tell the benefits of the vaccine. People now understand the benefit of the vaccine. That's the good thing happened. Everybody understood that I take a vaccine and I'm alive because of that. So that connection got established. So the hesitancy of vaccine, that is gone. But it also exposed gaps of hospital infrastructure not ready.
Right.
The resilience of supply chain security is weak. We do not have in-country, for-country capacity. Cold chain and all those aspects got addressed. And when you talk about pandemic preparedness, it's like you're preparing for something which is not yet there. I mean, the way I look at it, when you start driving a car, you put a seat belt, not because that you are going to face an accident. Or you put on a helmet,
Right.
thinking that no, I'm going to die or I'm going to face an accident, but you still put on. It's a preparedness for any unforeseen circumstances happens, you are equipped with or ready with. You have been trained, you have been taught. And the same thing need to happen in the vaccine space. So when pandemic happens, if you're jumping, screaming, shouting, it doesn't make any sense. Are we prepared?
Yeah.
So that's why that's the best thing I love about Army, because when I worked for a couple of years in DRDO, there is one thing I learned. Irrespective of whether there is imminent war or not, they practice. They just practice. They practice. They practice. The practice is never ending. But still, they say that when actually real situation happens, you are trained, but it will be night. It will be raining and it will be never like what you have been trained for. But that's okay. But at least you are trained for it, right? You are aware that if such situation arise, how do I respond to it?
That reminds me of a quote which my back in school, a professor of mine said in history, is that अभ्यास में जितना अधिक पसीना बहाओगे, युद्ध में उतना ही खून कम बहेगा.
Exactly, absolutely. You said it. You said it. Yes.
So if a major outbreak were to happen in some time, what would decide who responds the fastest? Science, manufacturing, raw materials, or regulation?
Very interesting question. Which one should start fast? In my opinion, everybody should start together. Because pandemic is a situation of emergency. There is no one after the other. Each and every organization has to be mobilized together. And that is exactly what happened during COVID. A vaccine that was typically used to take years got made available 6 to 8 months time frame.
Right.
It's not because one thing happened, the other followed. Everything happened together.
Precisely.
So when I say everything happened together, what does that exactly mean? That means you need to take certain calculated risks. And you cannot be in a perfect situation. It is an emergency situation. The intent is very different. So the way I look at it, everybody has to respond together.
Right. So since we're talking about emergency situations, I would also like to address the current situation happening in Africa, and not just from COVID lens, but see, outbreaks like Ebola, the challenge is that it's different because there may not be a ready vaccine for this particular strain, right? Since you've worked closely with global health in the UN and systems like that, how should we understand preparedness in such cases?
So the truth is, the current strain of Ebola, there is no vaccine available. There is a vaccine available for emergency use, which has already been developed for a different strain. Can that vaccine be quickly adapted to the new one? Of course, yes. There are multivalent vaccines currently in an accelerated clinical development to address this need. But as I said, many times the neglected diseases doesn't have the right kind of funding, or sometimes go slow, or there is no commercial benefit attached to it, and that is one of the reason when sometimes they go slow, but when pandemic happens they get very accelerated and move faster. So the good thing is such kind of emergency situation gives a push for some kind of neglected diseases, because they come to the forefront and the whole international attention is on developing drugs, therapies, or vaccines. But the way it is happening now, WHO has declared that it is a global emergency. It can spread from one geography to the other geography. I mean, to my knowledge, government in India has strengthened the surveillance systems at the airports to see and monitor more carefully, specifically those who are coming from affected countries. So this is the first step towards control measures, that you start increasing your surveillance machinery. Right. So that if at all you are finding something, you can curtail that information or infection at the right place, and you can quarantine the person and then reduce the amount of spread, or curtail the imminent infection that can spread from one person to the other person.
So is preparedness more about having a vaccine ready, or the systems that are in place, is that supposed to be ready?
So vaccine is just one part of the puzzle. It's not the game. The game is the system to be ready. And when I say system to be ready, it is drug, it's therapy, it's hospital, it's treatment mechanisms, it is surveillance mechanism, it's monitoring, diagnostics, everything. Because just having vaccines is not going to address the need. There could be somebody who is infected who need a treatment or a therapy, or a hospital infrastructure who has quarantine mechanisms or wards that can be quickly quarantined, a diagnostic system that can quickly detect and identify. And so everything, it's not just the vaccine. Vaccine is just one part of the puzzle.
That actually reminds me, I don't know what kind of, when in history was this, maybe you might know about this, but there was a time when vaccine was supposed to be delivered to the most remotest places, and they did not have the supply chain, and they had to probably follow the supply chain route of one of the most leading soft drink brands, and they had to deliver the vaccine because they had much stronger footprint.
If I think cold drinks brand, do they have much better cold chain? Of course, yes. The question is, they don't need to maintain cold chain when the product is being shipped. It is only at the end point where it has to be served chilled. So sometimes the trucks that is moving a cold drinks need not to be chilled. But that's not the case in vaccine. The moment the vaccine is made, filled into a vial, by the time it is injected, to a great extent, most of the vaccine need to maintain the cold chain. Not a single point
it has to
you can deviate from there. It has to be maintained at a 2 to 8 degree, means 2 to 8 degree, and or defreezing condition. Mostly it is 2 to 8 degree.
Yeah. So that is one of the myths that was debunked by you today.
Yeah, no, it's not the myth, but basically the point what actually that story tells is they have a much stronger and better supply chain and distribution network than our healthcare infrastructure.
Exactly. So our next segment is the rapid fire segment.
Okay.
And we're going to have very quick and short answers to some, well, we have come up with our own set of questions.
Okay.
So first, one vaccine platform with the most untapped potential.
mRNA.
Biggest bottleneck in making vaccines truly affordable globally.
Cold chain.
mRNA revolutionary or overhyped for routine vaccine?
Revolutionary.
Most important lesson to learn from the Ebola vaccine development?
If you put efforts, you can develop vaccines which are neglected diseases. Vaccine against neglected diseases.
Okay. One geopolitical risk that concerns you regarding the vaccine supply chain?
If there is a war and supply chain disruption happens, every country is at risk if you do not have in-country capacity for raw materials and producing your own vaccines.
Okay. One piece of advice to a young scientist entering the bio-vaccine development.
Find your motivation and understand the why of the science that you are doing. Many a times, most of the scientists are very occupied with how and what and forget the intent behind that. So it's very, very important to understand why is very, very critical.
The 5 whys.
Yeah. The fundamental thing is if you don't know why you do what you do, and if it gets lost on the way, then you actually lost your North Star. You don't know where you are going. So that's something is very close to my heart, and a lot of people say you are asking too many whys, and that is that curious mind that drives asking why. And my father was a scientist. My mother was a principal in a school. So I was taught from the very childhood, never accept anything on face value, question why.
Right.
And that became a kind of ingrained deep inside me. That drives the curiosity and that gives me clarity. It's not just doing it. It's trying to understand why am I doing what am I doing? Am I just breaking stones or am I just making a temple? रोजमर्रा की पत्थर तोड़ रहा हूँ या मंदिर बना रहा हूँ? If I understand if I'm making a temple, then the commitment to breaking stones will be very different. The kind of attention I'll give is different. So the expectation from throughout my career in school and colleges and everything is explain me the why first. Don't give me just the task. Unless I am clear about why am I doing what am I doing, or why are you asking me to do that, or why it is 2 hours, or why it is tomorrow. If that is not understood, then it is difficult for me to move. So the same thing I advise every young scientist, get your why very, very clear. So that gives you clarity of the path.
That's interesting. I remember one of our interactions, you told me that you ask, if you have any problem, just ask 5 whys, and by the 3rd why you will get to the crux of
Exactly. That's true. That's actually true.
If you could fix one thing in global vaccine access, what would it be?
Take the politics out of saving life.
That's quite revolutionary.
Yeah, at every level there are the other vested agenda. Many times the why people forget. Why are we all doing this? Is to save somebody's life, and then you got caught up in something else and you completely forgot why. So, and that bothers me. Having gone through 12 to 13 episodes of malaria, multiple episodes of hepatitis, countless numbers of cholera, gone through multiple infections, seeing people dying without having access and everything, it just gets into my nerves when I see that you're just missing the bigger picture. And many times several meetings when the policies get decided and everything, I went and asked, have you seen somebody dying right in front of you, not having access to treatment or healthcare?
Right.
If you have not seen it, you possibly don't understand it. So if you have never seen somebody dying right in front of you and you are a healthcare policymakers, you are assuming something. You have never seen what real life is. So, and that's the fire that kind of burns inside me. It consumes you, right? It drives the purpose, it drives the mission, and it gives you the intent of why you are.
Right. Last question. Would you predict the next development in the vaccine community?
There is something in WHO agenda is called Disease X. It's also there in every multinational entity having programs on infectious disease, and there is something called Disease X. That means we really don't know what that disease would be. But there is definite imminent danger of that disease X can spread. Because we have no idea at this point of time what that could be. If it could be anything, it could be Ebola, it could be Nipah, it could be Hanta. You have no idea what it could be. So that's why it is called Disease X.
Wow.
So you are basically fighting with an unknown enemy, and you are getting prepared for somebody you have no idea of.
And that enemy may be present at this point.
It could be hibernating, slowly growing, waiting for the right time. You have no idea.
Wow. That is scary.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So our next segment would be more on vaccine access and routine immunization. I want to quote a data because that's the another side of preparedness, and it's not about new pandemic, but it's about what we do in our routine. So WHO and UNICEF reported that in 2024, about 14.3 million children globally were at zero dose, meaning they missed out on any vaccination. UNICEF data also shows that around 20 million children remained unvaccinated or undervaccinated in 2024. So, while we discuss the advanced vaccine platforms, 100-day vaccines, there's still a basic gap, right? How do you look at this gap between scientific progress and actual healthcare setup?
This is interesting. I mean, the unfortunate reality is when the whole world was grappling with COVID, the whole attention focused on developing COVID vaccines and rolling out COVID vaccines. Every individual were locked in the house, and quarantine measures were getting implemented. That disrupted the routine immunization programs for the pediatric vaccines where every child need to get the vaccine. And the worst case was measles.
Right.
When COVID subsided, the maximum number of cases that erupted is measles, because the measles requires routine immunization. And many times the quarantine measures or focus of shift of government into COVID programs, somehow the measles vaccination program slipped through.
Correct.
And that led to spurs of measles cases. So this always happens. And that is why pandemic preparedness is all about having that balance. It's very, very important that when you are focusing on emergency, don't forget the basic routine immunization programs for which the second dose, the third dose, the fourth dose need to happen.
Right. So, is the harder problem today innovation or the last mile delivery?
I think we are catching up well with innovation. If I'm talking about a global landscape, there are newer vaccines are coming up. The structural biology, the proteomics, the genomics, reverse vaccinology, use of AI to identify new antigens.
Right.
The discovery part is to a great extent accelerating. But the biggest gap still remains is the last mile delivery. The bigger question is, how can we make the discovered vaccines or manufactured vaccine be available to the last person in a remotest part of the globe getting that vaccine? Because if you leave one guy, that person can get infected and become the key point for spreading the disease. But there is also another terminology is called herd immunity. That means if you vaccinate a set of people, which is close to more than 85% of populations, that means you are restricting the microorganisms spread.
Correct.
By restricting spread, you are actually reducing the chances of having a pandemic situation occur or a disease becoming endemic or pandemic. But also, it's very, very important to also understand most of the virus or microorganism mutate when they get a chance to get infect somebody. So if you don't allow the virus to multiply or enter your human body, then the chances of changing or a new type of strain emerging is very, very less. That is why during COVID, your basic thing was recommended was hand washing.
Right.
Or for malaria, it could be as simple as using a mosquito net. Just avoid a mosquito biting you or avoid the virus entering into your body by simply washing your hands. Proper washing of hands, not just washing the way we generally wash. Then you are basically not allowing the microorganism to enter into your body, hence not multiplying, hence not adapting, not evolving, hence not becoming somebody else where we don't have necessary vaccines or drugs or therapy to be prepared with.
India and Asia have already been playing major role in global vaccine access and development. In your view, how has Asia's role changed through the years, and what would it take for India to move further up in vaccines and biologics?
So I think post-COVID, that became one thing very clear. The agenda of in-country for country has become very, very prominent. It actually happened to some extent during influenza pandemic, bird flu and swine flu, but it really got consolidated during COVID. The real thinking of in country for country happened during COVID, because they realized, no, it's not going to work unless you have in-house capacity built. So in that context, I think there are two players that emerged very well. One is China, another one is India. India was well known for a hub for global manufacturing. Today, if you think of contract manufacturing vaccines for global market, India is the leading player. There are one or two very strong vaccine manufacturers in India, produces the maximum amount of dosage volume and capacity for global market.
Exactly.
So India has emerged significantly as a contract manufacturing player that can produce for the global market, maintaining the quality standards. Majority of the infrastructures are WHO qualified or FDA or EMA qualified. That strengthens the quality standards. We can produce it affordably, and those vaccines, which are mostly in platform approach, are very well suited for contract manufacturing.
Interesting. What, according to you, makes tech transfers so difficult, and how could we make it better?
I think that reminds me of one example. And I love cooking. So one day I called my mom. I said, I want to cook this. Can you explain the recipe? And she explained the recipe on the phone.
Yeah.
And I exactly followed what she said. And I cooked, but it never tasted exactly how my mother cooked it, or how it tastes when she cooks it. And that's a perfect example of what tech transfer, right? It's the technology and the awareness of how to make the product. It's not just the ingredient, or add 1 teaspoon here, add oil when it splutters, add that one, cut this side. It's not that. So many times I see when other products are being made, it's like carpentry, and vaccine is like fine arts.
Interesting.
So why fine arts? Even if I give you a recipe, fully written with the raw materials, with the process controls and everything, the process is so complicated. It is not portable. It's not easy to transfer the knowledge so easily. If the recipe is so simple, cooking rice, then it's very straightforward. It could be as simple as if I see pharma compounds, the historical pharma compound, a crocin or a paracetamol or something of that nature, it will like cooking rice. Simple structures, you can easily make it if you know the formula. But if I have to say risotto, it's the same rice based, but it's a completely different recipe. So this is exactly what is technology transfer.
But Dr. Pattnaik, how and what would bring the trust of customer that the process is done correctly and scientifically?
Yeah, so that again comes back to my mother. She says, "Nahi, tere se nahi hua, tu nahi kar payega." So I said, "No, why not?"
Exactly.
Because she has not seen me cooking. So sometimes, do I have the experience? If I don't have the experience, I don't have the credibility of cooking something, then how can she trust me that I can cook the recipe that she is giving? So if I am a manufacturer and I'm giving the process to a contract manufacturer, or I'm a drug developer or a vaccine developer, passing on the process to a contract manufacturer, I need to have the trust that you have the basic know-how of producing, you have a history of producing it, you have an infrastructure, you have a kitchen where you can do the cooking, and you have demonstrated that you are a good cook, you can cook other stuff. So if you don't have that, then how can I know or trust that you can actually take my process and make a vaccine out of it? I can give you a process, but it will come out something, but not necessarily it will be a vaccine. So the point I'm saying is, it's about the trust. So the trust is demonstrating consistency, demonstrating capability, competency, infrastructure, mindset. And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And once you have the trust, once you have established your capabilities, of course, things will flow in.
Now, coming towards a more futuristic point of view of life sciences, looking ahead, manufacturing seems to be moving in several directions at once. Right now, we see modular facilities, single-use systems, regional capacities, continuous processes, fed batch, even like AI-led processes. Now, AI is just creeping into everywhere. You just
It's become a fancy word everybody's saying.
Throw in AI and that's it.
Yeah.
But not every technology will equally matter for every product, right? What do you think will define the next decade of life sciences manufacturing?
All the words you said is true.
Mhm.
Is the manufacturing becoming modular? Yes. Is it getting decentralized? Yes. Is it in country for country is being built? Of course, yes.
Right.
Is it more and more becoming single use? Yes, because it is flexible. It
Right.
quickly scales up. Is it more intensified manufacturing? Yes, process intensification is happening.
Hmm.
Is it continuous today full? No. Is it heading towards that? Of course, yes.
Oh.
Someday it will be continuous,
Right.
but there are technological gaps to make it continuous. There are certain unit operations that are running continuous, but not the full manufacturing process. So all of those that you said, it is happening. And each one of them has, at their own capacity or point, has contributed for manufacturing excellence.
Right.
And that is certainly bringing a difference. So it's not this versus that, or either or it is all of them.
This and that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll transition more into leadership now.
Mhm.
A scientific organization is different from a normal hierarchy because people here are trained to question, they're trained to defend their data, they are trained to understand things from a more non subjective point of view, right? And that is good for science, but it also slows decisions if the leadership is not clear. A scientific leader has to know when to allow to decide, and also to ask for better evidence when it is the time, right?
Mhm.
How do you lead people who are experts in their own right?
I think it's not very different than any other person. I mean, the way I look at it, the person is a subject matter expert or a scientist or a technocrat because they prefer to remain in black and white, yes or no.
Right.
But the business, to a great extent, not always black and white, and business to a great extent runs in gray space. You drive an organization to become as clear as possible, but as you evolve in the organization, and that was my personal journey. When I started my career in science, I was very factual, very data driven, always looking for binary, yes or no, black and white,
Right.
Correct or wrong. But I slowly transitioned into business roles, corporate functions, and strategy, and leading the organization and people. That is one thing I realized. At that level, you won't have answers to things in binary. It's no more black and white. It's no more yes and no. You do not have answers to 80-90% of the things. So now the bigger question is, when I don't have facts and data in front of me, I don't have trend patterns and analysis, then how do I take a decision? How do I move somebody or align people? I think that one aspect that helped me to align people is to have a compass rather than a map.
Compass?
So compass tells you the north.
What's your north?
Is the vision or the mission or the direction where the organization is going. Is it all figured it out how? Not necessarily. But do I know where am I going? Yes. Can I take a detour and come back? Of course, yes.
Maybe, yeah.
As long as situation, circumstances, environment, and people are defined that takes you in a certain direction, you will keep moving.
Right.
But there is no map, because every organization is different. Every organization's strength, weaknesses, operating platforms, everything is different. So a map that worked for someone else not necessarily is the map for you. So there's one thing I learned in leadership, that and that learning came from transitioning from science to leadership. You prefer, when you are in science, to think black and white. Leadership says get used to gray space. You want to have answers to everything and then wants to take a decision that slows down the organization. In a way, most of the researchers are risk averse because they are skeptical, cautious. They're confident, but they're cautious. Whereas business or leadership desires or requires bold steps, calculated risks, and take decisions with limited number of facts and data. So your years of experience or gut feel sometimes play a role. So now the bigger question is, how do I ensure that the people who are more factual and data driven, accepting accepting that space. I think the best way is to drive is the favorite question that I have: do you understand why? So if you understand why, and you have only done a part of the puzzle, but if you're not addressing the other things, how do you think that is going to work? And asking the right question actually triggers somebody to think. And it is also a journey. I mean, when many years ago, I was transitioning from pure R&D functions, leading scientific groups across the globe to business functions. It was very uncomfortable for 2 years. It took some time for me to say, no, that model of working, of trying to find out everything in binary way, black and white, is not going to work. And there are people I have seen who are in science, but very comfortable with not knowing, because your scientific curiosity says you must know.
Yeah.
So my view is the quest should not die. The curiosity should not die. Then you are finished. The curiosity should stay, but you should align to a bigger purpose and a bigger cause. When you are aligned to the North Star, the compass that I refer to, not stuck with binary and I must have a map, then only I'll go. Sometimes you don't have a map. You just have a North Star and be comfortable with it. And if that is what it is, then you will move. You will move with the organization. And that's risk-taking ability. And if you are willing to take risk, many times, at the worst, what will happen? It will not work. Anyway, you are not doing, so it's not working. So why not try and don't work? It doesn't work. So you are not failing, actually.
Yeah.
And you yourself said, it's like gaining the experience, right?
क्यों डरे जिंदगी में क्या होगा कुछ नहीं होगा तो तजुर्बा होगा.
Exactly. So you will gain something out of it, which will be useful. I mean, I'm here not because I've done everything right. I have done terrible things. I've done a lot of mistakes. And that shaped what worked, what doesn't work. But the good thing is I was fortunate to have good mentors, good bosses, good teachers, parents that gave the framework of thinking, continued the pursuit of curiosity, helped me to find myself in a way. It's like, Hanuman never knew that he can jump and then go over the ocean. And he was to be reminded that, do you know that you have the ability that you can jump and you can fly over the ocean?
True.
Sometimes you yourself don't know, and it's your mentor or a coach or a good leader or a manager recognizes you and tells you that, hey, you have this ability, you can do that. And I can vividly remember I had a boss, and he said, you are so good at strategic thinking. Have you explored possibility into business functions? I mean, you can be excellent when it comes to business, because you can connect science to business, because you have a very structured strategic thinking. I never thought of
doing
that. I can do that. So coming back to the question that you said, how do you align people who are more black and white subject matter experts, technocrats, give them the North Star and help them take the leap of faith of not knowing and be comfortable with the gray space.
Wow, that's very interesting, because in your journey so far that I've known about, you've worked with scientists, researchers, like you said, in R&D, and now that you're working with founders itself. I also read in one of your articles on your team in Singapore, which was completely a millennial-oriented team. So now that the younger workforce is entering, and maybe 20, 30 years down the line, the entire workforce would be Gen Zs, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
How do you give younger talent the flexibility without weakening the discipline?
So I think it's not either or.
Okay.
Right? You can still give them flexibility with the discipline, right? You can eat everything. That doesn't mean that you will gain weight by eating everything. You have, so that's what I see. It's not binary. So as long as, I mean, I just I met a team of interns that came from IM to the company. I was interacting with them. I was amazed with their thinking process. They are all looking for the purpose. They wanted the vision. They wanted the bigger picture first. It's not that what am I doing? And they all ask, why am I doing? They asked, what's my North Star? If I'm here, what it can take me to. Nobody asked me that how much salary you can get, or
what's the package,
or what's the package, what's the benefits. That could be a point, but the point is, help me understand why I should be here, or what am I expected to do, and how does it connect to the purpose. So I think the current generations are far more matured than what we used to be. They are far more exposed than what we are then, and things are changing. It's always a mixture of that, or a combination of that.
It's this and that, rather than this or that.
Yeah, exactly.
When a senior leader like you has to read data, but they also have to read rooms, they have to read people, what do you pay attention to when you are trying to understand a real concern behind a discussion?
Most of the time, when you see smoke, you have to assume there is fire. And most of the time, when you see fever, don't give paracetamol. Try to figure out where from the disease is coming, why the person is having fever. And we have this tendency of quick fix. Bhook laga to Maggi kha lo. So you need to first, if you need a full course meal, you need to buy the vegetables, cook it. It will take 3 to 4 hours. Then you can enjoy the full course meal. But I think the point here is, it's the empathetic listening, trying to understand the deeper aspect of the challenge. And most of the time, people think it is the person. And the way I look at it, it's never the person. It's always the system. So question the system, not the person. So if you have this habit of questioning the system and trying to understand where the system flaws, then you realize, no, the person wants to do it. Either they are overoccupied, or they are distracted, or they don't have the role clarity, or they don't know where to do, or they have a limited understanding of what need to be prioritized. So many times it's not exactly the person problem. Person is always comes the last. So in a quality concept, there is something called corrective and preventing action. And there is also a connection called failure mode effect analysis. That why did this fail? The same logic, if you apply to any situation, you will understand. In that logic, it says people should come the last. It's very easy to blame on people. But that could be system, that could be equipment, that could be process, that could be procedure. There are many other things that is actually causing the problem, not the person. So having the system thinking actually helps to identify and fix the problem for all the time to come, rather than trying to fix the person. So trying to understand why I see what I see. Come back to my favorite question, why? So assume there is fire when there is smoke. If the person is coming and telling this is where it is, then try to understand, don't kill the messenger. हनुमान के दुम पे आग लगा के लंका में आग मत लगाओ. So it's all about knowing where it is coming from, and that requires patience, that requires self-reflection, that requires certain kind of open probe, closed probe question to identify it. And once you know, then here is the thing. It's not the person. Actually, he's stuck with the system, and system is driving a behavior. So fix the system.
True.
So I mean that's how I've learned the way, and that helped me with people when I'm leading people.
Interesting.
It's not the person always, or most of the time it's never the person. It's always the system.
Yeah, correct. And now that you are leading AmiPolymer, and how has your vaccine and bioprocessing expertise and background, even in terms of leadership, it has shaped the way you look at critical components, like critical polymeric components, tubing, single-use systems, and what is your vision ahead for components like this?
So I think if I'm thinking of AmiPolymer as an organization, you would have noticed we have changed the tagline from a sealing expert to enabling healthcare.
Right.
So directly or indirectly, anything and everything that we have done in last 28 years as a company actually enabled healthcare. It has touched directly or indirectly a drug product or a drug drug substance or a pharmaceutical active ingredient or a process that led to a healthcare intervention. So, in a way, the vision and mission is much, much bigger. So, I think the way I see is this: are we in a critical space which is highly regulated and controlled? Yes. It is very, very important that the products are made, maintaining the quality standards, driving the right kind of innovations, and ensuring that it is still made affordable and accessible to pharmaceuticals and biopharmaceutical manufacture. And that is where I see AmiPolymer playing a significant role. And coming back to the question, how does that help me being an end user, a developer and an end user, and also having spent time in Millipore or Merck, I understand how does all these critical components that you mentioned connect to the biopharmaceutical manufacturing or product or access to healthcare. So I think I'm privileged and in a unique position who understand the science, understand this component, understands its end use. So it comes like a full circle. So it's all about connecting all the three dots.
That's interesting. So now we are coming towards the conclusion of our very long podcast. And as a final question, I would like to ask that what is that one piece of advice that you used to give to the older generations, which you will not give to the millennials, Gen Zs, or the Gen Alphas?
You asked for one advice. I'll possibly give two advice.
Okay,
Bonus
let's
one.
go.
Don't say yes to everything. That's number one. Number two, don't act unless you understand why.
Interesting.
So unless you have a clarity of why are you doing what you are doing, just doing is not going to take you anywhere. And if you are not able to say no, and you are saying yes to everything, you are actually marginalizing yourself.
That's
So the
true.
current generation, if your intent, purpose, and being true to yourself is not clear, you are stuck. You're not moving anywhere. So the current generation need to be, and I see that spark in them. They love knowing where they're going and why they are going. And they are absolutely okay with saying no. And I've seen on your face, on my face, people will come and very comfortably will say no, which the previous generation always struggled with.
Right.
So simple, if I have to repeat again, know your why and be comfortable with saying no.
That is such a banger way to end the podcast.
Yeah.
So I would first like to thank you for your time,
Pleasure.
your willingness to share your expertise and provide this conversation to the younger generation so that everyone who enters the industry has the context straight, clear, and they know their whys. So thank you so much for taking out that time and having a conversation with us.
Yeah. Thank you, Khushi. Very much appreciate. Enjoyed the conversation. Very much enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you so much. So that was Dr. Pattnaik for us. What stayed with me from this conversation was about how rarely science moves in a straight line. This episode was about the journey from possibility to responsibility. If you enjoyed this episode of ImaTalks, follow along for more conversations with people framing the science-led industries. I'm Khushi Gandhi, your host, and I'll see you at the next episode of ImaTalks, where science meets story.